Welcome to our executive interview series at CyberTalks, presented by CyberScoop. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're here with Nicholas Carroll, Cyber Incident Response Manager at Raytheon and RTX Business. Nicholas, thank you so much for joining us, and I'd like to start by asking, how has the enormous sudden attention around artificial intelligence and generative AI in particular impacted your organization's cybersecurity planning heading into the coming year, particularly as you work with the federal government?
So this is a really big deal for us and our clients. The team that I work with at Raytheon, we do a lot of cybersecurity services for federal, for state and local government, all across the country. And we're getting a lot of interest and feedback from our clients that they want to adopt these tools and use these tools, but it's very much an explosive hype cycle around this kind of technology, and everybody wants to have it and use it, but they're not necessarily considering the ramifications of what these things can mean. So we're trying to make sure that we're giving everyone kind of ideas for guide rails and guardrails to be placing around these technologies, because these are new and exciting tools. When I started in technology and cybersecurity many years ago, AI and ML were still things. They just were more in the background, operating in large data centers, doing massive data work. And we're getting to a point now with these generative tools, we're placing these into the hands of the end user. And the end user doesn't necessarily have the full training to understand what they're doing and why it might impact the business. Samsung had a data breach recently using ChatGPT because their coders were putting proprietary code into the tool set to kind of bounce ideas off of the model, which is a great use case. But that means that that information that was proprietary code from them is now kind of leaking out for everybody else to get their hands on. So we have to be very conscientious around how we're adopting these tools and using them. It's just like any tool, right? You can take a drill and you can hang a shelf with it, or you can crack a safe. It's just how you use it.
Well said. Then next, what have been the most serious type of cybersecurity attacks that your organization is dealing with this year compared to maybe a year ago? And what threats are you seeing more of that organizations really need to get out in front of?
So we've been seeing some shifts in the ransomware landscape. Last year, I was kind of hopeful that we had achieved maybe peak ransomware. A lot of the infections kind of died off a little bit, but what we were really seeing was impact from the war in Ukraine and the sanctions on Russia disrupting the supply chains of cyber criminals. Unfortunately, this year, they have learned to adapt and overcome those limitations, and we've been seeing more and more attacks. Many of these groups have started to abandon ransomware itself and focused on just doing data extortion. So trying to get their hands on as much data as possible from companies and then selling it on the dark web or ransoming a company just to say you didn't have a breach or an incident. We've seen this now with Clop ransomware, with the MOVEit attacks this year, and many other tools where they're not necessarily focusing on the ransomware itself, but simply on the data and the reputational damage they can do with it. This is something that a lot of companies need to be aware of, especially now that there's an interest in AI tools, not just for the end users on a good side of house, but also on the nefarious side of house. We've started to see a lot more malware developers using different tools like WormGPT and FraudGPT, which are derivatives of ChatGPT style tools, to help them make new malware faster and to craft phishing emails that look more natural to the organization that they're targeting.
A lot to keep on top of. Thank you for sharing that. Nicholas Carroll, I really appreciate your stopping by and just sharing some of your insights about cybersecurity opportunities and threats in the government landscape.
Yeah, thank you for having me.